Hey, what up, girl? How you doing? Hey, what up, girl?
Yo, let's talk about justice. In the West, it's all about prisons. Big, scary buildings where we lock people up and throw away the key. Out of sight, out of mind, right? But this idea of justice, of locking people away, it's a very Western thing. In many parts of Africa, traditional justice is totally different. It's not about punishment. It's about healing. It's about making things right with the community. It's about understanding why someone messed up and helping them get back on track. See, in the West, we separate the crime from the person. We label them criminals and lock them up. But in Africa, the focus is on restoring balance. They understand that when someone does wrong, it affects the whole community. So, instead of throwing people away, traditional African justice focuses on bringing people together. It's about dialogue, about understanding, about finding solutions that work for everyone. It's a very different way of thinking about justice. One of the big differences with traditional African justice is that it's immediate. Someone does wrong, they face the consequences right away. There's no waiting for months or years in a courtroom. No, sir. Justice delayed is justice denied. Let's say someone steals a goat. In the West, that's a court case, lawyers, the whole shebang. In many African cultures, the thief is brought before the village elders. The community hears the case. The thief has to explain themselves, face to face with the people they wronged. And the punishment? It's about making things right. The thief might have to replace the goat, maybe even give back more than they stole. The point is to restore balance, not to punish for the sake of punishment. This immediate justice, it helps everyone move on. The victim gets closure, the offender makes amends, the community heals. It's a system that's designed to strengthen the community, not tear it apart. Now, some of you might be thinking, cows? What do cows have to do with justice? Well, in many African cultures, livestock is a big deal. It's wealth, it's status, it's how you provide for your family. So, when someone messes up, part of making amends might involve livestock. Let's say someone gets into a fight and hurts another person. The elders might decide that the offender has to give the victim one of their cows. This does a few things. First, it compensates the victim for their injuries. Second, it hits the offender where it hurts, in their wallet, basically. Losing a cow is a big deal. But here's the thing, the community is also involved. The elders might decide that the cow should be slaughtered, and everyone shares the meat. This brings everyone together. It turns a negative situation into an opportunity for the community to connect and move forward. See, traditional African justice is not just about punishing the individual. It's about restoring harmony to the entire community. It's about understanding that we're all connected and that we need to look out for each other. Now contrast that with the Western prison system. We lock people up in cages, isolate them from their families and communities. We strip them of their dignity, their humanity, and we expect them to come out rehabilitated? Sadly, it doesn't work that way. In fact, it often makes things worse. Prisons become breeding grounds for more crime, more violence. People come out angrier, more disconnected, more likely to reoffend. And let's not forget the cost. Prisons are expensive, man. We're spending billions of dollars every year to lock people up. Money that could be used for education, for healthcare, for creating jobs. It's a system that's failing everyone. Look, I'm not saying that people who do bad things shouldn't face consequences, but there's a better way. A way that focuses on rehabilitation, on healing, on restoring people to their communities. A way that actually makes us safer.
A nation behind bars, South Africa's prison crisis. South Africa's prisons are bursting at the seams. Imagine being crammed into a space meant for one person, but with 3 others. You can barely breathe, let alone move. That's the reality for many inmates in South Africa. The overcrowding is out of control. There are way too many people locked up, and there's not enough space for them. This crisis isn't just about numbers, it's about human beings. People are crammed into overcrowded cells, struggling to survive. Basic necessities like food, water, and sanitation become luxuries. Diseases spread like wildfire in these conditions. It's a humanitarian crisis unfolding right before our eyes. The situation is so dire that it violates basic human rights. Imagine being stuck in a legal system that's slow and overloaded. Thousands of people are stuck in jail not because they've been found guilty but because they're waiting for their day in court. This is a system screaming for reform. Beyond the cell walls, unpacking the root causes. To understand South Africa's prison crisis, we need to look beyond the prison walls. Poverty, unemployment, and inequality are the real criminals here. When people are desperate and have no opportunities, they are more likely to turn to crime just to survive. Imagine growing up in a community ravaged by poverty. There are no jobs, no hope, and no way out. Education feels like a distant dream, and the streets become your only classroom. In these desperate circumstances, crime can seem like the only option to put food on the table or provide for your family. The legacy of apartheid still casts a long shadow over South Africa. It created deep inequalities that persist even today. Many communities are trapped in cycles of poverty and violence, denied access to basic services and opportunities. It's like the deck is stacked against them from the very beginning. More prisons, more problems, a costly band-aid solution. So, what's the government's solution to this overcrowding nightmare? Build more prisons, of course. But here's the thing, building more prisons is like putting a band-aid on a gaping wound. It doesn't address the root causes of crime, it just creates more space to lock people up. The government is planning to spend a whopping 36 billion rand on new prisons. 36 billion. That's a lot of money that could be spent on education, job creation, and tackling the root causes of crime. Instead, they're choosing to invest in a system that's already broken. Building more prisons is a short-sighted solution that will only perpetuate the cycle of incarceration. It's like trying to solve a leaking faucet by buying more buckets instead of fixing the leak. We need to address the underlying issues, not just the symptoms. Breaking the cycle: alternative paths to justice. Instead of throwing more money at the problem, let's get creative and explore alternative solutions. How about investing in education and job training programs, or providing affordable housing and healthcare? These are investments that could actually break the cycle of poverty and crime. We also need to rethink our approach to justice. Do we really need to lock people up for every minor offense? Can we explore alternative sentencing options like community service or restorative justice? Let's find ways to rehabilitate offenders and reintegrate them into society. The justice system should focus on rehabilitation, not just punishment. Let's create programs that provide inmates with education, job skills, and counseling. Give them the tools they need to turn their lives around and become productive members of society. It's time to get real about crime in South Africa. Building more prisons won't solve the problem. It's time to address the root causes, invest in our communities, and create a more just and equitable society for all.
The most important person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs.